Anything we mess up, just tell me. I can edit it out. No
Sure.
worries, no stress. Stress-free zone over here. We don't do stress on this side.
Love it.
All right. So, thank you so much for joining me today for the Rehab My Soul podcast. I have a very special guest here today, Diane Douiyssi, and she is going to did I say it right? You
You did.
laughed. You laughed. You threw me off. Diane Douiyssi, and she's just going to hang out with me, chat, and talk about her spiritual journey, and we're just going to go from there. So,
Yeah.
welcome, Diane. Nice to have you
Thank
on.
you. Yeah. Delighted to be here. Delighted to be here.
Awesome. So, I am here in Texas. Where are you located?
A recent arrival to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So sort of straight north, I think,
Awesome.
of
Cool.
Texas. Yeah.
Cool. So, what would you like to share today? I want to hear your story and whatever you want to share with
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. I think what's been really interesting to me when I kind of reflect on my spiritual journey is how empty it was in the middle. I was raised Catholic, go to church every Sunday um, with my parents, and along about the time that I was a teenager, I'm starting to listening to the things that are being said, and there was just some stuff that just didn't really jive. And I started to question, like all teenagers do, and I decided that a lot of this stuff was just sort of BS. And went on to college, went to Grinnell College. It's a small liberal arts college in the middle of Iowa. And even though it's the middle of Iowa, there's a lot of liberal thinking, kind of a 60s throwback in the late 80s. And I got really steeped in intellectualism at that time. So I think I studied sociology. I kind of came to view religion and anything that smacked of religion as what Marx would say, the opiate of the masses. And I just really, I didn't realize this at the time, but looking back, I sort of looked down on anybody that, was religious or a spiritual type. I think I probably felt sorry for them. So I really embraced this sort of intellectual view of life and then just sort of went on to live my life and did all the things that I was supposed to do. I was really good at that, following the rules, being a good student, getting a job, getting successful, having the family. And then, I hit my late 30s, early 40s, and looking at my corporate job, I thought, wow, this just doesn't feel good. It just something's missing here. And so I went in search for what was missing, and I did not think that it was anything to do with spiritual or religious in any way. I attended um, a writing retreat because an author that I admired was hosting it, and she was hosting it with this sister, and I found out later a nun in the Catholic Church, but she didn't dress like a nun. She didn't act like a nun. And she had this really deep writing retreat where she sort of helped us get in touch with this part of ourselves. And I was a little skeptical, but I was there for the writing and had some really profound insight. And I kind of look at that retreat as a bit of a turning point um, to in my own spiritual journey to say, maybe there's a bit more out there than I'm aware of. And um, yeah, so that has been the start of, the last few years of just kind of exploring more and being a lot more, yeah, open and knowing that there is something else out there. And I haven't found my religious home, um, but I'm completely different than what I was, when I was 20. Let's put it that way.
Wow. So, what's different when you say you're completely different? What do you mean?
Yeah, well, I will I believe that there is a higher power organizing the universe. I can squarely make a distinction between, religion and religious institutions as a human-made um, endeavor with all the pluses and minuses that are human, and I also can embrace the mystery of being, um, of knowing that there is something that I can't quite know out there, and not be afraid to say that, and yeah, just completely different. Yeah.
Interesting. So how has that helped you on your path, on your journey, just knowing that something else exists out there?
It's helped me a lot, especially in terms of building my business. So in um, 2015, I lost my best friend in the world. She had a stroke at the age of 50. She was a little bit older than me, and just I talked to her every single day, texted her probably dozens of times a day. We had worked together on and off for 10 years. And, I'm IMing her that morning, and then all of a sudden I stopped hearing from her. And I never got to talk to her again. Next day, I got a call from her husband and said she, had an aneurysm. It was in the hospital, and they were hoping for the best, but she never came out of it. And at that point, I realized, sounds like a cliche, right? Life is short. During that same period of time, my husband had a stroke. A couple months later, he thankfully made a full recovery. My boss, who was around the same age, died of stage 4 cancer. So I kind of had the classic volcano
Mm-hmm.
going on. And I'd like to say I turned, towards the higher power, towards God in those moments. And I didn't. I felt pretty lost. But that did start me on a different path in my professional life. I realized I needed to do something different. I was in a corporate job that was sucking the life out of me, and I couldn't really figure out why I was there. Um, so I took a coach training course, which helped me get in touch with myself, helped me understand a lot about my socialized self versus my essential self. And that helped me get in better touch with myself. And yeah, then after a year and a half of sort of doing that part time while I was working, I decided to make the jump from my corporate job and start my own business. And having an awareness of and a belief in a higher power has been really key, because starting your own business is, I often say to my clients and my friends, that's its own spiritual journey.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
It's creating. You're creating
Hmm.
like as if you're having a baby. Like it's a miracle.
Yes, it is. And it's got high highs and it's got low lows. Um, and the amount of pressure that is, I think, thrown at new business owners, and also that we create on ourselves,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Because, we have expectations of who we are in this world and how we should be and how successful we should be. And looking back, that was pretty crushing in the beginning, right? Just it takes time to build a business. It takes time. It takes patience. It takes faith. It takes listening to yourself, and leaning into this belief that I'm not alone doing it. That there is a higher power that's helping me out. That's guiding me. Um, and it's not all up to me. I think that that transformation um, into resting into that more happened more fully, yeah, as I started my own business. I don't know if that makes
Hmm.
sense or not.
Oh, absolutely. It does. It does. It's not all up to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not all up to me. Once you can really kind of integrate that. Now, it's
Mm-hmm.
very nuanced though, because I feel like spirituality is one of those things where you got to like have a footnote in every conversation you have,
Yes.
because you can say something like, "Oh, there's no such thing as perfect timing," but then know that what spirit wants for me, he'll show me in perfect time. You know? So
Mm-hmm.
it's very nuanced in the way that we express it. But yeah, it's not all up to you in that moment of feeling like the world is on your shoulders. It's not all up to me. I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
bear this by myself, you know?
Yeah.
It makes
Yeah.
perfect sense.
I was just talking to my daughter earlier today. She's got an interview for an internship. She's studying interior design, and she was like, I'm trying to treat it like a conversation, and it recalled to me something that one of my teachers, my spiritual teacher and business teacher, told me about the sales conversation. So when I started my business out, I had a few people I had been working with part time. So I'm gonna have a client or two, and the inquiries came in um, not as frequently. So you get, okay, I'm gonna have a sales conversation, right? And so you're excited. I was excited. I was like hopeful. Oh, this is just, and a lot of pressure. Like, am I going to say the right thing? Am I going to be authentic enough? Can I explain my program? Can I explain all this sort of thing? And my teacher just said, you know what? I look at the sales conversation as an opportunity to find out if you're supposed to work together, right? If it's in sort of the divine plan. Um, and that, framing it in that way, just felt like this lifting of the pressure. And I thought, oh, yeah, I mean, I'm still going to do my thing. I'm not going to, show up late to the conversation or, be drunk or something crazy like that. But it's like, oh, I can connect to this person. And, if it's meant to happen, it's meant to happen. And, that alone really lightened a lot of the pressure. But that's just an example of some of the ways that I felt, kind of, it's not up to me by myself. It's just, I'm not here doing this whole thing. It's not all on my shoulders. Yeah.
Whew, I want to take a deep breath into that as I go through building everything that I have to build out and trusting and believing and selecting and making decisions and all of those things. It's not all up to us, man. Oh, yeah. There's so much power in surrender.
Mm-hmm.
So, what other ways has surrender been a part of your journey? It seems like
Mm.
maybe that would be a part of it, right? Surrender would be a part of your journey.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think one thing that popped in when you were saying that is just also the ability to discern the difference between surrender and collapse.
Mm,
Because sometimes, you know, this is one of those footnotes. I've seen people kind of throw around the word surrender, like, oh, okay, shoo, just, whatever. And maybe it goes to what I was saying about I'm still doing my part, like, in that sales conversation,
right.
I'm showing up, right, with my best intentions and my heart forward and open. But it's discerning the difference between surrender and collapse, right? So if I face a difficult situation, I'm not collapsing, right? I'm asking the divine for, what's here, right? What's here for me? What's my response? And, and quite often, strength, um, and leaning into my own strength and my own knowing, might be an appropriate answer too. And that's a way of, um, some people might not think of that as looking like surrender, but in a way it's like, okay, this is what I'm being told is needed in this situation. Yes, I'm surrendering the outcome, but it's a nuance between surrender and collapse, if that makes sense.
For sure, for sure. And my while you were saying that, what was coming to me was collapse and surrender.
Mm,
Surrender for me is me stopping and waiting
mhm.
for an answer.
Yes.
Collapse is my answer.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? When I collapse because I'm done. Like, I'm not surrendering.
mhm.
I'm done. That's my
Right.
answer, you know?
Right.
And so to remember for me the difference between collapsing, because sometimes you end up surrendering as you're collapsing. You can possibly
Hmm.
do two things at
Yes.
once because
Yes.
you've just pushed yourself so much and you haven't moved an inch, or you don't
Right.
feel like you've moved an inch, you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, it is very nuanced. Like we said, spirituality is very nuanced. Have a healthy, clear conversation with some footnotes. but yeah,
Absolutely.
but yeah, surrender for real is really just waiting for an answer that
Hmm.
is going to come from source, um But man, you got to be tuned in and be ready for that answer because it may not be what you want.
Yeah,
May
absolutely.
not be what you want, but it's what you need, you know?
Mm,
Yeah. So I want to definitely circle back. I'm sorry I did not verbally share my condolences with you from losing your friend.
oh, that's all
That
right.
has to be a very tragic way to
Mm,
have a last conversation with somebody, you know? Man,
yeah.
I
Yeah, I miss her.
I'm
I mean, it's
sure.
gotten better. Time has made the loss in the moments and the days seem a little less raw, but yeah, I still miss her. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I don't think that's a thing that some of us will ever get past. I don't want to tell you what your journey is. I
Hmm.
lost my father three
Mm,
years ago, about 2 days ago. It was
mm.
3 years when we buried him, and I could make myself start crying right now. I'm about to, just thinking
Mm,
about him.
hmm.
It's a
Yeah.
feeling that never goes away,
Hmm.
but there's also such a surrender that is required. The
Mm,
surrender is required for this type of grief, you know?
hmm.
And I think the missing of that person will never ever go away.
Hmm.
But the opportunity to grow without them is, in a way, the blessing, you know?
Hmm.
Because we can never grow at this point. Yes, I'm actually freaking all out bawling crying. Um you better watch before I
Oh,
hit the ugly
bless.
face. Before I hit the ugly face. It's coming, girl. I got to change the subject. Hold on. But yeah, I think having to continue, we don't have to do anything. We choose to continue. But
Hmm.
choosing to continue without them and surrendering to the fact that we have zero control over this process, right?
Hmm.
The answers for me have been plentiful.
Hmm.
Have you found that with yourself as far as losing that friend and that surrender of
Yeah.
that process?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I suppose um, it's a human thing to want to find some sort of reason and ascribe some sort of reason as to why things happen, but we can't know all the reasons. I mean, I think, on some days, it's funny. I was thinking about her this morning because her favorite color is purple. So I'm wearing purple, got
Oh,
the lilac color on. So she's with me here. But she always wanted me to do something different. We would the reason I think she made my corporate job so tolerable because it was just funny, right? Like we would just be like on a conference call and we could, IM each other and be like, oh, what's the jargon of the day, right, in the speech or something like that. We could
right,
just have a good time, and I lost that when she was gone, and I lost a whole bunch more. But in
right.
terms of my professional path, you know we had fun at work, and who knows, I might have stayed on a whole lot longer if she was still here. And I'm not trying to resolve why she was taken away. But one of the things that it allowed me to see, and her losing her so early was really just allow me to see, wow, the cliche, it's life is short. And I saw it, I knew it, I heard it a million times before, and it became really real. So just that kind of her helping me look around and say, do I want to keep doing this thing that doesn't mean anything? I didn't really want to keep doing it without her, that was for sure. um, and so it didn't feel logical at the time. I wasn't thinking through the decisions, but life put some things in my path that I just said, oh, you know this sounds really cool. I'm really interested and excited about this. Why don't I try this coach training? Right. And I
For
remember saying
sure.
when I started that, I was like, I don't even know why I'm doing this. I'm not going to do this full time. This is just crazy. and but I was listening to myself. You talked a few minutes ago about listening to yourself and that deep listening and listening to the messages that we're getting from source. And that's been a process too, of really learning to discern what are the voices from society that are in my head, what are the voices from my upbringing, people who meant well but were just maybe trying to keep me safe and passing along the messages that they'd gotten. um, yeah, really discerning and what are those messages that are coming from a higher place.
How do you
Yeah,
do that?
yeah, I meditate and in reflective quiet every day, um, 15 to 20 minutes every day. That wasn't the case a long time ago. That's been, the last couple of years I moved into that. It just brings me a sense of groundedness when I start my day. And then I listen throughout. I did that before, but I think I brought some ideas like, okay, when I started doing that, I felt the benefits. Um, and yet I still kind of had a rigidity around it. Like, this is my time to meditate. This is my time to connect. And what I've been working on the last few years more intentionally is just like, okay, throughout the day, right? Okay, what's next? What's
Right.
next? What do I feel like? What's needed? And that is sometimes just as quick as, trying to close my eyes and listen in the moment.
For sure. Yeah, there's so many voices in there in that head of ours, right?
Mm-hmm.
From
There
the
are.
the upbringing to the protection, the control, the support, the not support.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been a journey for me as well to really figure out what those voices are really saying and which ones
Mm-hmm.
belong there. Which ones belong there, which ones deserve to have a megaphone and which ones don't.
Right. Yeah. I love the way you put that. Which ones deserve to have a megaphone and which ones don't? Um, I remember I always wanted to do creative writing, and I was like, this was before all this stuff that I've been telling you about happened, and I remember reading something that would talk about like the inner critic, and it would say something like, your inner critic shows up and says, "Oh, your writing isn't good enough," or so. I thought, I don't have that. I don't hear a voice in my head. That's crazy. Well, what I came to find out once I studied personal development, went through my own transformation in my coach training, and then helping clients, I the I didn't hear it because I was so identified with that voice,
Yeah,
that inner critic,
it was a part of such a deep part of you. Yeah.
that I didn't even recognize it as separate. Um, and yeah, there's still a discernment process. But what I've learned in particular on my spiritual journey and business journey is that compassion is so necessary for ourselves
Mhm.
first and foremost, and that being compassionate with ourselves, um, helps strengthen our compassion that we can give other people. I mean, some of us, it seems like, I'll speak for myself, I can have a lot of compassion for other people. I see difficult situations, pain, suffering, all of this stuff. But when it comes to myself, I still, like I said, some of those voices have grabbed the megaphone and taken over the conversation. So really trying to, um, yeah, lean on that, that spirit has an abundance of compassion for us.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Having it for ourselves is, I think, depending upon your background, my background lended me to having massive over levels of compassion for people,
Mm-hmm.
and zero for myself.
Yeah.
And for me, my spiritual journey has been a journey back to me. It has
Mm-hmm.
been a journey away from wanting to take care of everyone else, prioritizing caring for everyone else, and having all of this outwardly compassion and moving that back to me
Mm-hmm.
and realizing that the more I love me, the more I have available to love everybody else. You know?
Yes. Yes.
It's such a simple formula, but it's not a formula that's taught in school. It's not taught in
No.
church. It's not taught at home.
No.
It's not a part of homework for any any class that I've taken.
Mm-mm.
But it's the most important lesson. And yeah, that is the hardest lesson, and the most
Mm-hmm.
beneficial lesson is because we're just, love is important. The feeling of love, the feeling of connection, the feeling of friendships and relationships and all these things are so important, but they're also so very, how do I say, they're very important, but they're also the biggest mechanism for our growth.
Mm-hmm.
In the good relationships and the bad relationships, they're the
Yes.
biggest mechanism for our growth here on this rock of earth that we've decided to come in on this time around. Um
Yeah.
so I find it so interesting what you said about your friend and how she made the corporate work tolerable.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got some work friends now, and I'm wanting to transition and do my own thing and, all that stuff. And you think
Mm-hmm.
about the people that we met in that chapter of our lives, and
Mm-hmm.
how we are forever connected to these people, even
Mm-hmm.
though, you might have only worked one project together, but you hang out and,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
you create this bond. And it took me
You
a
do.
long, long time to realize that your work coworkers are like family, because I
Mm.
had my own jaded sense of regular family. So you mean
Mm-hmm.
to tell me these people, another set of people I didn't get to pick are my family again? Like, so I really, really
Yeah.
rejected the idea of your work people being your family. And they
Mm.
are. You see them so much, you interact with them so much because of
Mm-hmm.
the way, our work system is set up. Hopefully that's changing, though. I think California is trying to pass some law to make the work week like 34 or 36 hours or something. It's
Be
pretty
nice.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we see these people so much more than we probably see our own biological
Yeah.
family in some
Yep.
cases.
Definitely.
And it's hard to say, but it's so true. They make a very deep impact. And I feel like if things were not going as well as they are, like I'm having a situation now as I transition my life to my next path, having that friend there, if she was still here, you might have still been there.
Yeah.
And it's just it's crazy. Another thing just came to mind I want to talk about too.
Yeah.
It's crazy the how we can have this thing. Spirit says you can have this, but that person can't come with you.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
like the sickest trade-off ever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we would still sit here and be with these people
Mm-hmm.
if we could,
Yeah.
but we can't have both all the time.
No.
But we have to be thankful that we at least had that other one while we did.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's no way if we were ever, and we aren't presented with this choice often, right? It's not like I
Right.
got to say like, okay, oh yeah, I want that life over there, but I don't want my friend to go. No, it's
Right.
just like that's what happened. And one of the things that you said, your own journey is a journey back to yourself. And I think that really resonates with me too. Part of the reason I was so good at my corporate job, in the first part of it before I went into corporate marketing, I was had a client portfolio. And my clients loved me because I could be whoever they wanted me to be. right? I was a chameleon, right? If
Mm-hmm.
they loved knitting. Oh, I was so interested in knitting.
Right.
If they had, their daughter's bat mitzvah, I'd be like, oh, wow, tell me more. I just, if they had some little quibble with their neighbor, I would be fascinated, right? I wasn't, especially with my clients, I wasn't myself. Um, and so what's been interesting on my own path is to kind of come back to know myself. But I have kept in touch with some of my um, corporate family since then. In fact, one of them, we had a good bond, and then we kind of went our separate ways in the corporate world. And she was one of my early clients, and it was beautiful. Her life is just something else entirely now, and it's beautiful. But we had some kind of a connection. We shared some rough times, and you know, so I kind of believe that there. I like that metaphor that you said about they're the corporate family. And just like in our own families, there are people that we don't jive with,
For
right?
sure.
I've got some cousins, I'm like, okay.
We all do.
Right. And then there are other family members that we feel closer to. I feel like, that's a good analogy. We do spend a lot of time with them. And yeah, some people I'm still in touch with. And it's been beautiful because as I've become more myself, especially now that I'm doing something that's more authentic to me, we're having deeper and richer um, discussions, and that those relationships have grown too.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. As we change, I believe as we kind of transform and like you said, go on a new path, um, it's like the ripple effect, you know,
Absolutely.
for those that are next near us.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so tell me about your work. I know that you said that you started the coaching, and I want to hear about that. I
Mm-hmm.
want to hear what you're working on, how you provide your human help to other humans.
It's a beautiful question. Thank you. So primarily I help coaches, healers, and other creatives who care about authenticity and who are struggling to market and grow their business. So um, that may look like I offer a marketing mentor program, and it's a unique combination of it's one-on-one work, and it provides practical help on the marketing, and it also provides coaching and energy reading if they get stuck. Um, a lot of times people think that there are rules to marketing. You have to do this, you have to show up on social media X number of times, you got to do it this way, and there just aren't. So I'm
Yeah.
kind of on a mission to tell people there aren't rules, there are principles, right? That be consistent, show up, um, believe in your business, be compassionate with yourself, and then I kind of help them layer that in with their own journey in building a business,
Mhm.
and I support them throughout that kind of beginning stage of knowing who you help and what you help them with, because that's the foundation. If you don't know who you help and what you help them with, anything you build on top of that is just going to have a shaky standing. You won't be clear in your marketing. So we start
Yeah.
there, and then we kind of take the path um, through there, and I love it. It's great. Um, and I also help a handful of people for just life coaching for a handful of people. And I think the parallel between these two groups of people is I'm really helping both people sort of find their voice and their self, either in their business with the marketing, or with these sort of more life coaching people, find their voice in their own life and what they want to move forward on. So there's a parallel, and I have a sense that there's an intersection coming somewhere out there in the future, but I can't. It's still foggy. Darn
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's definitely coming though. I feel like our work as healers at this stage right now in the
Mhm.
world, 2022 and beyond, we are basically inviting people to themselves.
Mm. Mm.
We're
Mhm.
inviting them. We're
Oh,
trying
it's
to,
beautiful.
because I Don't steal my shit, Diane. No, I'm just joking.
All right, that's just beautiful. Inviting people to
I'm just messing
themselves.
with
That
you.
is just lovely.
Because if we talk about internet marketing, right? And business online and all that stuff, I've been studying internet marketing since I've been here in Texas. That's been over 10 years.
Mm,
And I've watched so many ebbs and flows. But the flow that's coming right now is the flow that is undoing all the ebbs that we went
mm,
through and we paid good
mm-hmm,
money to learn.
mm-hmm,
And just to realize, I remember I was talking to a friend of mine, and I had this thing when I was younger, a younger internet marketer. I saw all these Caucasian guys, all these white dudes making all this money, and they figured it out. And they didn't have all the childhood trauma and all the shit I had to get through first.
mm-hmm.
Before I could build a business, I had to get through all of that muck first. And then I got to it. So I always said, oh, I am going, if I could just have the confidence of a young Caucasian white boy. He's already white. Why is
Yeah.
he Caucasian as well, right? But if I
Yeah.
could just have the confidence of a young white boy, like, God dang it, I'm gonna figure this shit out, you know? And I
Mm-hmm.
have figured it out. I have. I
Mm-hmm.
understand deeply all of the tactics, the angles, and everything. But then I realized I don't want my business to look like these people's
Amen. Yeah.
businesses. I don't want to say the things the way that they say it. I don't want to.
It's
And
not
so
you.
then, yeah, so then it was like this journey to becoming a white boy, all the way back to realizing now 2020, 2019, in the middle of the pandemic, 2020, I had a conversation with my homegirl from Jamaica, and I told her, I said, all this time trying to figure out how to be a white man, and all I needed to do was be my damn self.
Uh-huh.
And so
Mm.
now I'm like trying to unravel all of the yarn balls of marketing tactics in my head and say, okay, what do I want to do?
Yeah.
How do I want to say it? What is my medium going to be? Or mediums or what, I don't
Mm-hmm.
have to be on
Yeah.
every platform because it's energetically,
Mm-mm.
honestly, it's energetically overwhelming for me.
It is. It well for anybody, unless they have a huge, they're maybe not, Coca-Cola, they got a whole marketing department. They're hiring
I
people to
know.
be everywhere. That's fine. But we've got limited capacity, right? And the reason we're doing this work in the first place, my hunch that this resonates with you, but it certainly does with a lot of my clients, is that they do want to reject the old way of being because it's strung them out. It's life's, draining versus life giving.
Giving. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's at the foundation, you know, got to be you. And it's terrifying for a lot of people because first of all, they think that there's a right way to do the marketing and a wrong way. Just had a client I talked to yesterday, and she's, putting together a retreat, women's retreat for this fall. And she's like, okay, well, we're ready to talk about this. And she's like, I'm not going to do anything because I just don't want to I want to do it right. And I said, well, let's talk about that right now because there's really no way to do it wrong.
Right.
Right now, if you never send out an email about your event, maybe that's not the best, but there's not, you can't break it, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you show up with your heart and with honesty, right? If you're out just to make a buck, right? And that's what your goal is, and you don't care how you get there, then yeah, some of those tactics that have been taught for years are just going to be right up your alley. But the people I work with, that they're doing this work because they want to help others and they want to do it in a way that is life-giving to them. And they
Yeah.
often struggle with the marketing because what's been taught is, yeah, it's manipulative, either overtly manipulative or subtly manipulative, and it doesn't feel good to them. And so, a lot of times they avoid it. They're like, oh, I don't want to do it because I just, you know, uh. And
Yeah.
so helping reframe it too. Um, help them reframe some of their beliefs about marketing. But yeah, it always points back to you, because
Yeah.
nobody's like you anywhere, and no one has your specific set of gifts, talents, interests, passions, life experiences, skills. So you're unique, and you can let that